Hello and welcome to Wastebuild's first innovation spotlight for the day. Today we're going to be kicking off with Alessandra Lambidis from Carbon8Systems. Who's going to be talking about how their technologies and their systems can help decarbonize the construction industry. So, hello Alessandra, are you there?
Good morning, Russell. Yes, I'm thrilled to be part of Wastebuild.
Brilliant. We're thrilled to have you too for our first session of the day. So just before you start, after the 10-minute presentation, anybody who wants to join us in a Q&A session to chat directly with Alessandra, put questions to her online, or generally have a chit chat in a Q&A, please click on the breakout button after this session and we can have a chat informally there for after. Okay, Alessandra, over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. So good morning and thank you for joining me. My name is Alessandra Lambidis. I'm a business development manager at Carbon8Systems, and I'm excited to speak to you this morning about how our carbon negative aggregate can help reduce the carbon footprint of any construction project. So Carbon8Systems has enabled the production of carbon negative aggregates through our accelerated carbonation technology. So we convert CO2 and industrial waste into a valuable high-performance alternative to natural aggregate. And our aggregates are made of discarded waste, which is often destined to landfill at both a high environmental and economic cost. So we work with clients in heavy industry to upcycle their waste into valuable building materials. And the reason this is so groundbreaking is because this patented technology uses CO2 that is captured directly from these industrial emitters to transform their waste into this carbon negative aggregate. So in this way, we are really enabling the circular economy on those two key fronts. So to speak a bit more about our aggregates and our technology, as I have mentioned, they're a valuable high-performance alternative to using a natural aggregate in building and construction projects. And our award-winning ACT technology enables the permanent and safe sequestration of CO2 in sustainable building materials. And this technology is based on the fact that many of the thermal residues that are generated by industrial processes, especially in sectors like steel and cement, will contain minerals that are reactive with carbon dioxide. And so they will produce wastes in the form of bypass dust or steel slags. And the minerals that we're talking about here are mainly calcium silicates and oxides, hydroxides, and their magnesium equivalents. And the reaction is fundamentally the same kind of carbonation that these residues would undergo in nature, reacting to the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere. But what our accelerated carbonation technology does is facilitate the reaction between the CO2 and these minerals within a controlled environment, so that instead of the process taking months or years, it occurs at a much faster rate, in fact, in around 15 to 20 minutes. And the result of this accelerated process is a crystalline carbonate that is formed, which really cements the product and has the additional benefit of stabilizing any heavy metals that are present within the residue. And so what Carbon8Systems has done is develop an industrial container solution, which you see on the side here, which can be deployed directly on these industrial sites. And so the waste from these industrial processes are combined with CO2 straight from the flue gas to produce the carbon negative aggregate on site. So to speak a little bit more about the types of industries here, these industries are associated with a lot of environmental damage, both in terms of the CO2 emitted from their processes and the waste that they produce. And they face huge challenges in the current climate. What Carbon8Systems does is help to achieve their sustainability goals by addressing both of these issues. So in the waste to energy sector, things like fly ash, APCR and bottom ash, cement kiln dust and bypass dust, paper fly ash and sludge, steel slags from steel manufacturing, contaminated soils, some construction and demolition waste, and in the oil and gas sector, things like drill cuttings and thermal desorption residues. So to give a little bit more about detail about our container itself, it's really a plug-and-play solution which integrates at industrial plants. So this photo is of a container that is deployed on the site of a cement company in the south of France. So you can see there's a pipe that brings the waste residue into the container. And although it's not pictured here, the container will bypass a portion of the flue gas from the industrial processes directly into the container without the need for prior separation or treatment. And then the CO2 present within the flue gas will react with the waste inside the container and is then returned to the flue stack minus the portion of carbon dioxide that is captured by the reaction. And so then the result of these two wastes being transformed is the carbon negative aggregate, which comes out the other side. And it's a safe and permanent storage for CO2. And so these carbon negative aggregates are formed through an exothermic process. So the reaction that takes place means that the materials store more CO2 than is required to produce them, making them carbon negative. This is a safe and permanent way to store CO2, not just sequestration, but utilization as well. And in being able to be used as a replacement for natural aggregate, the carbon negative aggregate manufactured by our process also replaces the need to quarry for natural alternatives, and so mitigates the associated emissions with those processes as well. There are additional downstream savings due to some of the specific properties of the aggregate. For instance, it is lighter than a natural aggregate, so that means that you reduce the cost of transport, as well as being able to apply it in situations such as green roofing without having to amend or reinforce the existing structure to take the weight. So as I have mentioned, it is lightweight, so it's approximately 30% lighter than a natural aggregate. The hygric properties of the aggregate are a result of the specific chemistry and can be utilized to help control levels of humidity. The aggregate is absorption, so it'll retain water and will both absorb and drain fairly rapidly, so within minutes rather than hours. The water absorption ranges from 19 to 22%, depending on the specific residue that is being treated. And the thermal properties of the aggregate mean that it is well suited to applications that require insulation, such as pipe bedding. And of course, it is adaptable to client requirements. We work closely with our clients to try and understand the exact application that the aggregate will be used for, to determine the best way forward, and we can control the maximum grading and coloring. So to speak a bit more about the specific applications of the aggregate in building materials, it's great for bound applications such as concrete blocks. It can also be used in concrete mixes as a road filler, as I've already mentioned as well, for things like pipe bedding and as a green roofing substrate. So just to summarize what I've discussed with you this morning, Carbon8Systems helps to build the circular economy by producing a carbon negative aggregate that is made up of upcycled industrial waste. It's a permanent and safe storage of CO2, and the manufactured aggregate, which is a high performing alternative to natural aggregate, is carbon negative. So thank you so much for listening to me this morning. And if you have any questions, I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion in the breakout room shortly.
Thanks, Alessandra. Really, really interesting. It's amazing what science can do to capture this carbon and enable us to use it in the future for highly wasteful construction projects that have happened over the years. So look, we're gonna head over into the breakout room now. So please click on the button below and join us. We'll be there to kick off with a couple of questions. Please put your questions forward either by the chat room or join us and just have a chat. And we'll see you over there very shortly. Thank you.